David Clendon.
Thank you, Mr Chair. E te tia mana o te committee, tēnā koe, ngā mihi o te pō kia koutou. Sir, I'd just like to begin my brief contribution by acknowledging the Minister's obvious enthusiasm and share her pleasure at the success of restorative justice approaches in our justice system. Restorative justice as a principle underpinning justice is something the Greens have been advocating for, to my sure knowledge, since about 1993. So we're delighted that the government has caught up on that. One other point the Minister made in her contribution, the fact that the new justice sector will lead to or will support the creation and success of small business in her community in Christchurch. Unfortunately, in Northland, we have exactly the opposite problem. We have small businesses closing down because our rural police in the north are so under-resourced, so stretched, that they are unable to keep up with spates of burglaries. They are unable to patrol sufficiently to discourage the burglars. There are numerous small businesses in Kaikohe, in Kaitaia, in Okaiho, which have closed or are in the process of closing because of this government's very, dare I say it, parsimonious approach to funding, properly resourcing our police force. And that indeed has been a theme of this entire budget. It's very well represented in the suite of estimates we're debating under the general heading of the justice sector. Trying to save $1 now, but either not knowing or simply not being willing to confess that the short-term savings will result in long-term costs. You're simply moving a cost from today to tomorrow. You're relocating the costs. Economic savings resulting in measurable social costs for our communities, and that's a very unfortunate thing. So anyone who pays any attention at all to the legal fraternity, to the judiciary and their commentary over the last year or two will be very aware that there is a serious concern about the cost of access to justice. The cost of accessing our legal system is now such that more and more people simply cannot get the justice they would otherwise deserve. One example of that, the relentless cutting to legal aid, and the Minister at the Select Committee rather proudly told us that the income threshold for civil legal aid had been raised 6.5% over the previous year. That still means that a person working 30 hours a week on the minimum wage is earning too much to be eligible for legal aid. That is an appalling indictment of the failure to acknowledge that there is insufficient money in many people's pockets to get them access to the court system in order for them to get justice. The Minister recommended a resort to the community law centres. So I visit the community law centres around the country, engage with them, full of hard-working, dedicated people going way beyond the pale, but they're still unable to keep up with the demand because the funding simply isn't there for them. So the police have done an excellent job over recent years in terms of finding productivity increases. They are using mobile technology very well and wisely. They have managed to deliver a service as effectively, I believe, as anybody could. The increase in their budget this year was some 2.8%, much of which will be consumed in a seriously overdue pay rise that will really only be a catch-up. They're still arguably below the rates that they ought to be on for the very difficult and demanding work that the police do. Just as an aside, can I take a moment just to acknowledge the reappointment of Commissioner Mike Bush to his role, and I think that's a good decision by the Minister, and I'd congratulate the Commissioner on that. Sir, but sadly, Mr Bush is leading an organisation that is stretched to breaking point, and we have seen that. They are constantly told they must prioritise domestic violence and child safety and community safety and burglaries and 101 other things. And with all the best will in the world, they simply cannot be everywhere at once. And we're seeing that in our cities, in Auckland cities. There were some numbers produced at the committee again. I think 5 new officers to the total strength of the Auckland Police in a time when the population's gone up in excess of 100,000. That is an unsustainable position.